Hello and welcome to Mum's Work and Chaos with me, Louise. They say it takes a village to raise a child, so let me help you build yours. During this journey, I'll be learning about everything from neurodiversity in children's literature through to body image post-pregnancy. I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to this week's episode of Mum's Work and Chaos. This week, I'm really super excited to be joined by Daisy Upton, otherwise known as 5 Minute Mum, who has a wonderful new book out all about starting school. So hi, Daisy, welcome.
Hello. Hi, Louise. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Fab. So for any of my listeners who don't know who you are, and I don't know why they wouldn't, but anyone who doesn't know who you are, I was wondering if you could give us a little introduction about how 5 Minute Mum started, and basically how the books came about.
No problem. I'm sure lots of people don't know who I am, and that's absolutely fine. So I'm Daisy, also known as a 5 Minute Mum. And when my kids were 3 and 1, so 5 years ago now, I was a stay-at-home mum. But previously, before that, I had been a teaching assistant in primary school, working across early years and Key Stage 1, and specifically supporting children one-to-one that found learning challenging in the classroom for whatever reason. So I would take them out into small groups and do games and activities and learning with them. And I also supported some children one-to-one with speech and language difficulties. So that was my kind of background. And then I had my 2 kids and became a stay-at-home parent because teaching assistants aren't paid enough, still aren't paid enough, and definitely aren't paid enough to cover childcare for 2 children. So I was at home full time with my little nose minors, and we were doing bits and bobs to keep them busy, and they weren't sleeping, and I was knackered, and I knew I had to start getting my eldest ready for school because he was 3 coming up for 4, and I was like, wow, this is the age that I was working with and teaching with, and I need to start doing some stuff with him, like start playing and teaching him how to write his name or all that sort of stuff. But I was absolutely shattered. So in order to do it, I was just doing like a hack version of what I'd done in the classroom. I was just grabbing stuff that was already out in the kitchen or that we had lying around and making up really quick, easy games, and playing them with my little boy, and then with Florence as she got older and was kind of into toddler years.
Yeah.
And when I started doing that, some of my friends, I had lots of really great friends with kids the same age, were sort of like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And I would sort of tell them through a cold coffee, half conversation, a soft play. And they would say, I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean. So I said, do you know what? I'm going to start writing them down, and then I can send them to you and you can look at them in your own time. And I thought, and I'd written previous blogs. So I started a blog just because it was easy. And I really thought, not much of it. I said to myself, I'm going to do this maybe for a year. I'll do this blog. I'll post about it, and then we'll just shut it down. And it's a nice resource there for parents in the future. So I started just of an evening, what we had done in the day, writing it down onto a WordPress free blog. And my husband helped come up with the name because it was sort of when Joe Wicks was first taking off with his Lean in 15 stuff. And he was like, it needs to be short and sharp and snappy. And I was like, well, nothing takes more than 5 minutes. And he was like, well, then you're obviously the 5 Minute Mum. So I was like, course. So so I sort of started it based on that. It took me ages to start it. It was like, because you know what it's like. And I had the idea and I was like, shall I not? And then one day Ewan wrote his name independently, and I thought, you know what, all this stuff I've been doing has worked, and without him realizing it. So actually this is worthwhile bothering with. And then it just went crazy. It went crazy straight off the bat. I had a couple of like big Instagram following people share me right at the beginning, and then a literary agent got in touch within 6 months and said, I think you've got something that could write a book. And I was like, wow, that would be amazing. And then within a year I had signed a book deal with Penguin to write my first book, and I knew what that first book was going to be like. I knew what I would have wanted as a parent, and it was like a recipe book for play. So really simple. Every page had to have the setups super quick and easy, pictures that made it really obvious, and you could just literally open any page and be like, oh, let's try this, let's play this, because we've got this stuff knocking about in the kitchen, let's give it a go. So that was kind of how it came about, really. And that was the the beginning 5 years ago now, yeah, like I say.
But that's what I love about your books. Honestly, I use your books, and I've used your books since my eldest is 6. So we started using your first book, 5 Minute Mum, when she was in nursery. So I got that one sort of like getting her ready for school and everything. And then I also got Time for School as well. The only one I don't have of yours is On the Go, and I wish I had it, but my friend Ruth has it. And so I'll be honest with you, sometimes we do take pictures of things and send them as like, oh, this is a great idea, you should try this one, and things like that. But it's exactly that. It's a recipe book for games and for play and for things, and you've got everything in the house already. I love that. It's like, everyone's got that packet of crappy post-it notes hiding in the back of the cack drawer, haven't they, that they haven't touched in years, or that or a dry white board marker that you don't even know that you've got a dry whiteboard, but you've got a marker for it. Why? And I just think it's fabulous. Like we had to do some segmentation stuff when she was in lockdown in reception. We went into that second lockdown. We had all the joys of homeschooling because luckily I have a mum who's a qualified teacher. so it meant that I had a teacher at home because she was part of my bubble. And luckily it meant that I had that resource to keep the teaching going, because I was doing it, but I could call my mum and make sure I was doing it right. But also there was some bits in her learning that I just thought was so boring, like sheets and sheets and reams of paper. I'm pretty sure we went through a small forest at home. But there was some stuff that I was looking through your books and I was like, oh, well, we could do it this way and it would be much more fun. So it was like getting like a little tea tray and the dry white marker and drawing a line down the middle to show half, and drawing the quarter sections, and then getting her to arrange different coloured beads into how many should be in each quarter, and things like that. And it was fantastic, and it just made it so much more fun. But also I found it a useful way for actually connecting with her during that time as well, because I think I was trying to work. I had a 9-month-old and her at home, and it was just a lot. And so actually being able to make the learning fun, especially during the 9-month-old nap time, meant we could actually get a lot done all in one go without it feeling like it was taking forever, making it more fun. Even like just going out for walks in the forest and counting pine cones and things like that. It was just great. So I
kind of thing is great for visualizing for kids. It's really hard to know what you mean from a bit of paper, and it was really hard because the teachers had no choice but to send out worksheets, and obviously normally in the classroom they wouldn't be doing that, but they were like, we don't know what resources everyone's got at home, that's all we can do. And so I think most of lockdown just encouraging people to say, make the worksheet come off the page, do whatever it is with whatever you've got. At one point I got out everything in my pantry and was like, here's your maths resource cupboard. So you've got pasta, you've got Cheerios, you've got cupcake cases, you've got tins of stuff, grab a few bowls, a few spoons, and that is you've got maths resources right there that you need for your child. You can screw up the worksheet, put it away, like you said, get out some masking tape or a whiteboard pen and separate stuff out, count stuff out, put stuff in cupcake cases, and it suddenly comes to life, and children can then visualize it and understand and learn like they would do in the classroom. But I think it's so hard when you're not trained as a teacher. You're not trained, your mum is, but you weren't trained.
Exactly.
So to have that suddenly thrust on us in lockdown like it was, and just thrown at us, was just without any training or any background to it, was incredibly difficult. So that's what I spent a lot of my time doing in lockdown, was just sort of saying to people, it's okay to play.
I basically lived on your Instagram, if I'm honest. During lockdown, I would send your videos to my friends as well and be like, have you thought about doing it this way? And one of my friends was a teacher during lockdown as well. And so but I'd literally send her your videos and be like, maybe you should put this on Google Classrooms. Like, this is really useful. And we even, like, I think watching your videos and reading your book gave me so much more confidence when it came to actually having to do the homeschooling stuff. Because it made me realize that everything was sort of like a teaching moment. Even like we went through this spate of once a week she wanted to make cupcakes. She really wanted to make cupcakes. And so we'd buy, different cupcake making kit every
Yeah.
week, because I am not a baker. I don't have the patience to wait for the butter to thaw out before we can make it spreadable and usable. And so I used to buy all the kits. And so we'd have like the unicorn kit and the Paw kit and the Peppa Pig kit, and it was like, okay, well, how many spoonfuls of mixture do we have to put in each cupcake case? Okay, so if we put 2 in this one and 2 in one, what's 2 plus 2? It's 4. What's this? What's that? How many cupcakes will we end up with at the end? Can you count how many chases you've put on each cupcake, how many riders you put on each cupcake, how many unicorn horns do we have to use, or how many Smarties do we need to put in each cookie, and things like that. And so it was, you got the baking element, which is fun, and then she didn't even realize she was doing the maths or learning how to spell cookie and things like that, and doing the phonics around baking. She didn't even realize that she was learning at the same time. And I honestly think that being able to have that resource and having access to it made it so much easier to feel confident about going into the whole homeschooling thing. Because, like, I know I had friends who were just like, would start the day with all the best intentions, and then their kid would have a meltdown because it was all paper, all sheets, and then they'd just give up. And it sounded horrendous. And I mean, we had days like that as well, which was when I'd crack open your book and start using the methods from there to make it more fun, because it was, by making the learning fun, it made it less stressful for me as well. Because I didn't have to sit there and try and also learn the paper with her as well.
Isn't it? It's got to be fun for you as a parent too. You've got to, fun is the priority. And yeah, we had meltdowns too. Everybody did. I had meltdowns throughout.
But now you have your new book out, which I have a copy of. It's there we go, one sec, trying to get it on the camera. It's called Starting School, and it's basically an illustrated book, which is fantastic. It has a contents page. It's all about how to sort of like coach your kid into making friends, talking to them about school uniform, what schools look like, who, how the hierarchy of a school works as well, different types of staff that work at school, what your classroom might look like, about sitting on the carpet, which I know no reception child likes, assembly, playtime, what sort of your meal times you're expecting and what you're expecting, how to ask for help if you've hurt yourself or you need a wee. And anyone whose child is starting reception, please be aware they will ask you for knickers, because you are bound to have at least a couple of accidents in the first week. What tidying up is like, how not to leave your things in the classroom when you leave for the day, what a school year looks like, everything. So it's a fantastic book for helping prepare your child for school. But I'm gonna say this, I wish this book had been out when my eldest started school, because although you're a parent, you should know what the school routine is. You were in school, but man, it was so long ago. It's easy to forget. And I think it's just nice to be able to go through it, look at the pictures. It's a very friendly and inviting book, and illustrated beautifully, and I said, it's got this contents page as well, so it's fantastic for being able to like go straight to the bit that you want. And also sort of like I've been looking at it with my 3-year-old already, so she doesn't start until September 24, but they're already sort of starting to get into the idea of uniform bags and things at her nursery to sort of like prepare them for school. And it's been a really lovely way to like spark conversations with her as well. So she's been sort of like flicking through the book and she's like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
What's this? What's that? And
Yeah.
and allowing her to start the conversations around starting school, not just like having to instigate it myself, which is lovely.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why I've written it. It's not this is what your school's going to be like. It's more of a, this is kind of the sort of thing you might find. What's yours going to be like? What do you think?
Yeah.
How do you feel? And it's to spark those conversations. It's the first book I've written for children. All my other books are, adult facing. And yeah, it was the same. It was the book I wish that I could have had when my kids were little too, because I used to talk them through it. But it's nothing quite like them being able to visualize it, like we were talking before. And you said your little girl's, oh, that's me on the front, and I've put as many different characters as I can in there because I want the children to sort of almost be able to feel like they could just jump into that classroom and be part of it and make friends, and that's how I want them to feel when they're going into school that first day. So I've covered off everything I can think of, including stuff like assembly, because I think we say the word assembly to a child assuming they're going to know what that means, and it's a totally abstract concept to them. Like, what on earth is that word?
Yeah.
Bizarre, and you don't really hear it very often outside of school. So I've just tried to cover off, there's after school clubs and breakfast clubs in there too, because that's a big part of life for some school children. And there's the school year and how to figure out the school week, because one of the questions I always got asked was, like, they do a week at school and they think they've completed it. Completed it, Mum. I've done that, done a week. So it's to help them visualize the whole thing, really, because it is daunting and it is scary and it is big and it feels enormous. And so hopefully this book breaks it all down to feel completely manageable.
Yeah, it's a honestly, one of the first things I noticed was the diversity of the characters within the book as well. But my eldest, she even picked up the book and was looking through the book and was reading through it, and she was like, oh, that's like at my school. And my middle one will be going to the same school as her, and so she's able to like also talk to her about that. She's 4 years older, and so she's able to like open the book and explain to Indy, oh, well, they're in a blue school uniform, but our school uniform's green. And, oh, when we do playtime, we've got this area and we've got that area. And in the reception playground, because they've got like a little outdoor play bit, you'll find that you've got sand and water and a playhouse and a ship to play in and all of this sort of stuff. And she's in year 2, so she's still young enough to remember reception and be able to describe it quite nicely to Indy as well, which is great. But one of the characters that she really loved from the very big, she opened the book and saw him and has absolutely loved him throughout the book, and putting together the puzzle of the phonic sounds and things as well, is Maurice the mole.
Everybody loves him.
She absolutely loves him and how he pops up around the book. But yeah, I just think it's fantastic. It's a really great resource. And as you said, like some kids are going to have breakfast club and after school club as well, and that explains it all in there as well, which is fantastic. And my eldest used to go to after school club 2 days a week, and now she doesn't. But it might be something that we end up picking up again, depending on how busy we get. So being able to explain that to Indy as well, like what breakfast club and after school club and things like that look like, is really lovely. Because I remember my eldest was a little bit apprehensive about starting after school club, even though it sounds fun. She didn't know which.
They understand very quickly that not everybody goes to after school club, and so there's a lot of questions around that. Well, why not? And what is it? And so I think hopefully this book is, like you say, it's got the contents there, so you can, if they've got a question about that, you can flip to that page and say, well, let's see what this says, and you can read it together, and then have like, there's little activities to do, so you can have discussions around it too, that hopefully will only take 5 minutes, but it will just put their minds at rest.
No, it's just a beautiful book and a fantastic resource, and I just love the illustration. So your illustrator was Mackenzie Reckers as well.
Mackenzie, she's been brilliant. She's so good. I mean, I feel a bit embarrassed about taking all the credit for it, because although I wrote it, so much of what makes it brilliant is her fantastic drawings that brought it to life, and she had lots of brilliant ideas through her drawings as well, which are in there too. So yeah, that's why she's got a kind of bio page too, because I wanted her recognised for that hard work, because it's, it's not easy. She lives in America, I'm here, we're kind of through a whole team of people, so but I think she's done such a fantastic job in bringing those characters to life. And actually my kids are hidden in the book too. They are both in there as characters, but just sort of
I will have to take a closer look and see if I can find you in Florence as well. As soon as I find them, I will upload them to my stories on Instagram, so you can see that I found them for you.
Florence is a lot harder. Ewan's very easy to spot because he's quite prominent, but yeah, Florence is a bit trickier.
Okay. Fabulous. Oh no, that's amazing. So that's as I said, love the book. The kids already love the book, and if your child is starting primary school this September, I 100% suggest you going out and get it. I know for a fact that it's available at my local independent children's bookshop, Chicken and Frog. But if you aren't able to get to a bookshop, then it's also available on Amazon as well. So fantastic. Now, Daisy, I have a few questions for you regarding starting primary school as well. Like, as having been a TA and prepping your own kids for school and starting 5 Minute Mum, what would be your top tips for parents whose children are starting school?
So the first thing I always say about getting them ready is that it's not the academic stuff that you really want to get them ready with. It's just their basic care and looking after themselves and being able to advocate for themselves. So the first thing that I would suggest is to sort of talk them through asking for help, and remind them that they can ask for help and that they're allowed to ask for help, and if they need something, make sure they do that and talk to them about it. And so kind of this time of year is maybe when you want to stop helping them automatically as a parent, which we all do. They're struggling to get their shoe on, you'll step in and do it for them. So maybe just take a slight step back and let them have a go. And if they're struggling, say, oh, well, if you any problems, you can always ask me for help, and it'll be the same at school. And then give them that little reminder that they can ask for help, and just start practicing that. The second thing I would say is I did a webinar actually this week with two brilliant people, one of whom's been on your podcast before, Louise, called Charlotte. She's a speech therapist.
Yeah.
And also Samantha, who is an ex-deputy head teacher, loads of knowledge about like the neuroscience behind how we learn. And we did a webinar which is free to download, so you just can go to my Instagram page and you can find it. And we talked through the kind of background of all the things that you might need for starting school, a lot to do with emotional resilience and how to support them at home with like really small little activities throughout the summer, which it wouldn't take you more than 5 minutes, and actually is going to really prepare your child, because it's stuff like emotional resilience is so important, because we want them to be able to take the knocks that are going to come their way, which they will, and pick themselves back up again, and be able to do that without your support. The teachers will be there to support them, of course, but the more we can do that and prepare that with them through playing, through just simple play. And then the other one is just to talk with them, play with them, play games with them, and chat with them. When you're playing with your child, often they will tell you any concerns or worries, more so than if you just sat them down and said, well, what's bothering you about starting school? They're not going to sort of that. But if you play with them, whatever their favorite toy is, whatever their favorite game is, just take 5 minutes out of your day sometimes to just sit alongside them, and then you can gently introduce stuff to the characters you're playing with or the toys you're playing with. Oh, do you think they're maybe going off to school? Or and then see how they respond, see what they say, and you might hear some concerns or worries that you can then pick up with them at a later point. So it's just kind of those sorts of things to get them ready. There's loads of practical advice and stuff on the highlight page on my Instagram about how to stick a shoes and how to put coats on and all that sort of stuff.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, I think yeah, the best thing you could do is just is chat with them and reassure them.
Yeah, I think as a parent as well, like getting used to all the apps and the ideas of all the things you have to know about, like the school letter app. So they don't actually send paper letters home anymore. We get them all via email, but they're still like a digital letter and it's through an app, and it's just another thing to remembering to book your school dinners. I'm terrible for that one because I basically rely on the mum's WhatsApp group. Please, if you're the organized one, start one for your class, because it's an amazing resource and you don't have to run it. But I rely on all the mums in the group to remind me to book my school dinners the week before they go back to school, and all of that sort of fun stuff. But it's a huge learning curve for parents as well, isn't it? Not just for the children. Like if it's especially like your first child getting ready to go to school, I found it very interesting getting the idea of, like, she attended a nursery, and so I would actually pick her up about 5:30, 6 o'clock on the day, and might drop her off a bit later. So actually getting used to dropping her off early in the morning and picking her up earlier in the day was a fun one to get used to, and working that into my calendar around work. So
It's not just a big change for the kids, it's a big change for the whole family. And I think, yeah, you have to give yourself space to allow for however you're going to feel about it. Because it's a big life change. And yeah, the more organized you can get, have a notebook with all the passwords and all the dates written in it. Yeah, like you say, have your apps, make sure you share that stuff with a co-parent or anyone else that's responsible for your child. Have a shared calendar, or make sure the letters come into both of you, so it's not just all on one person to sort of figure it out, because it is an administrative bombardment when you start in schools, and it's like, oh my god, I need a full-time PA just to help me manage this. So I think, yeah, it's really good if you can get ahead of the game, and that's in the back of my starting school book. Actually, there's 10 top tips for parents, and that includes how to cope with the administration.
I have a comedy skit sort of series on my Instagram called School Announcements, and it basically takes the mick out of the school announcements, because they always send you the newsletter at the beginning of the term, and it covers the whole term. So you might have got the newsletter like 2 months previously and have to remember all the dates from the newsletter, and then they'll give you like 1 or 2 days notice of the event that was in the newsletter, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're about to break up for half term. You need £1 for a charity event. You need to take in a box of cakes, because you can't bake cakes for a cake sale now because the ingredients in the cakes. So you have to take a box of cakes with the ingredients on them. You have to remember that it's also Crazy Hair Day, World Book Day, and that they need a costume and a book for that, and all the other joyful things that you have to remember as a parent. And so it was only natural that it turned into a skit on my Instagram, because it is the bane of my life. I'm terrible at remembering what's coming next, and what event we need to remember. We got an email about a month ago telling us that Sports Day had been postponed. I totally forgot that Sports Day was even happening. But luckily I bought the right coloured polo shirt at the beginning of the year when we were buying all the school uniform. So it's just one of those things. You will get used to it eventually. My kid is now in year 2, and I now know what to expect. So there you go.
Gradually ease into it, and the thing is, everyone's going to mess up. Everybody, even the person that you think has got everything together all the time, they will mess up, and we all make mistakes, and we've all turned up to the school gate, like you say, without the pound, or with your child not dressed up and gone, oh no, run back home. Or like I once had to go and cobble together a Greek outfit for my daughter because I thought it was just for my son. I'd put him in a toga and sent him off to school, and I'd forgotten it was apparently a whole school event. Didn't even realise. And so I had to go home, cobble together a white sheet and an olive branch and a belt, and go back to school with her flip-flops and dress her in the corridor as quick as I could. We've all been that parent that forgets, so don't worry if you do. We've all been there. The teachers get it, the other parents get it.
That is so nice to know that it's not only me. Our school, it's very much everyone buys the costume off Amazon, and so it turns out that every pilgrim child, or every child from the Great Friar of London, is dressed the same.
Whole little group of them.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's always fun seeing the photos arrive on Google Classrooms for their day of learning about the Great Friar of London. They're all dressed exactly the same with the same outfit from Amazon. So you know, it's very nice when you're in the WhatsApp group to know that you're not the only one who's forgotten or will forget. It's a nice supportive place to be usually. But yeah, well, Daisy, congratulations on the new book.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your lovely kind words about it.
Oh no, as I said, it's a fantastic book, and it deserves all the praise it can get because it's wonderful, and I can't wait to really use it with my middle one when she starts school, and my littlest one is 2 in November, and I'm 100% sure I'll be using it with her when she starts school as well. And thank you so much for your tips for children and parents starting school in September.
My pleasure.
Oh, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode of Mum's Work and Chaos, please make sure to subscribe on whatever podcasting channel you're listening on at the moment. Or if you'd like to get involved, feel free to email me at mumsworkandchaos@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at mumsworkandchaos. See you then.